So last but not least, we have Nate Wood, who's a medical education fellow from Yale School of Medicine, and his talk is entitled The Basics of Nutrition for the Busy Clinician.
Let's go, Nate!
Hi y'all, I'm back. So I changed the name of the topic just a little bit, but we're going to get at the same things here, which is we're going to try to uncomplicate the science of a healthy diet. We have 10 minutes to do so. How many of you think we can achieve this goal? Oh, okay, yeah, all right, great. So some of you believe in me, right? So I'm going to tell you my learning goal, which is that this is less of a knowledge dump and more of a how can we reorganize our thinking around what it means for a diet to be healthy. And so that's my goal for our session. I'm not going to actually tell you my objectives until the end, so stay tuned. I want honest answers unclouded by what I want you to learn. So with that, I want to acknowledge that food and nutrition are very confusing, right? It's not just the public, it's not just our patients, it's us. As I talked about this morning, our education and nutrition throughout our training, it's not so great. And so oftentimes we're left feeling a little bit like this, both when it comes to what should I eat for my health and what should I talk to my patients about to better support their health. So I find that the best way to kind of tackle this is to kind of bring out some of this frustration first. So how I want to do that is I'm going to ask you first, actually, how do you define a healthy diet? And so we're going to do an activity called a think, pair, share. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds to think about this on your own, and then you're going to pair up with someone next to you, discuss, and then we'll come back together as a group. So start silently thinking to yourself, how do you define a healthy diet? Awesome. Now find someone near and discuss. You have 1 minute. Consensus here. All right, you guys, we haven't figured it all out. You know what a healthy diet is, right? All right, which pair would like to kind of tell us? How do they define healthy? Anyone brave enough? Sure.
We said lots of fruits and vegetables, unprocessed and nutrient dense.
Ooh, love that. So some great words here. Nutrient dense, just talking about how many nutrients are present in a food kind of per calorie generally, and then kind of thinking about more things to include in our diet. So defining it healthy based on what it's composed of largely.
Besides what generally comes to our head is adequate proportions of different macronutrients and micronutrients. I don't know if it's healthy specifically, but I would also want to consider the accessibility of ingredients around you. And the other thing is, like, it should have a decent variety. Like, it shouldn't be the same diet over and over.
Great. So when I ask this question to learners, I frequently get words like moderation or balance, and so variety is another one of them. But then also thinking about, we have needs, right, for macronutrients and micronutrients, and the specific proportions of those is really important too. So that's great. Someone else? Yeah, I'll take one more.
We added that it has to be tasty and enjoyable. Part of eating is enjoying it, and it has to be easy to prepare. You can actually accomplish it.
Love it, love it. You know that's what my whole life revolves around, so love that answer. Make food taste good, make it healthy, it has to be accessible, has to support our function. So as you can see, there's kind of some different answers here, right? And so I asked this question to a lot of different learners as I switch over to this mic. And I get generally answers in 4 different groups. Eat more of these things, eat less of these things, balance and moderation, or it supports our function in some way. We have specific needs, and a diet that supports those needs helps. And so we brought out a few of those things here. But as we can see, like we have kind of different definitions of maybe what it means for it to be a healthy diet, and they don't necessarily have to be diametrically opposed. You know, maybe we can make room for all of those components in our definition of what it means to be healthy. But I think one way we can further refine our definition is to take a look at evidence-based dietary patterns. And so you've all heard of the Mediterranean diet, of course, known and loved. The PREDIMED study kind of popularized it further, and we know it for cardiovascular disease, prevention and treatment. What are some other evidence-based diets folks are familiar with? You can just shout them out. DASH, yep, okay. Do I know doctors well, or do I know doctors well? So DASH diet, right? So lowers your LDL, lowers your blood pressure. A lot of similarities here between these two diets. Any other dietary patterns that folks are familiar with, follow themselves, talk to their patients about, see in the media? Paleo, I heard. Wow, that was a great participation. I missed the rest. Oh, this is harder than I thought, yeah. Intermittent fasting, okay, great, yeah. Keto, yeah. Intuitive eating, yeah, that's a big movement now, yeah. Great, so we could go on all day, right? PRISM, like Jenny Craig, the Weight Watchers, there's tons of diets, right? But some other evidence-based dietary patterns that I like to lean on include kind of some of these plate methods, right? So we all know the USDA's My Plate, which used to be the pyramid. The nutrition source, how many of you are familiar with the nutrition source? Okay, great. So the nutrition source is awesome. It's a website hosted here at the T.H. Chan School of Public Health. It is exceptional, evidence-based, accessible information for you and for your patients, and they've developed this healthy eating plate. Highly recommends everything they have. And then there's also this diet that we're all familiar with, known as the whole food plant-based diet, right? A little more restrictive, but as you can see, it looks pretty similar. Really promoted by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So we have all of these different diets, and we know that they all have some evidence for health promotion. We think of them as healthy diets, right? So the question is, which diet is the healthiest? Why would we ever want to prescribe a diet to our patient that's suboptimal? So, you know, we probably have to answer the question, which diet is the healthiest? And why, right? And so, again, I want you to think to yourselves for 10 seconds, and we'll do this same think, pair, share activity. So which diet is the healthiest, and why? That was a quick one. But now I'm going to throw a wrench into things, actually. So your pair, you came up with the healthiest diet. Now find another pair with you and combine, and the four of you decide what you think the healthiest diet is. 50 seconds. I feel like maybe folks are settling on an answer here. Which group of four feels confident? Who came to a consensus and wants to tell us which diet they think is the healthiest? Yeah?
Whichever one they can adhere to.
Love it. Love it. Right. Whichever diet they can adhere to, that's the best diet. That's the healthiest diet. Yeah. Other thoughts? Yeah, right. It's hard, right? Yeah. Maybe it's not the right question to be asking, right? And so we've heard about the Mediterranean diet. We've heard about the DASH diet. We know and love them. We've looked at all these different plate methods. But I wanted to ask a bigger question, which is we know that all of these diets are healthy. We seem to have a hard time picking out which one's healthiest. So maybe we should really just say, what do they all have in common? So yell it out. What do all of these diets have in common? Plants, yeah. Fruits, vegetables, plants, exactly, right. So I hate to make it seem like it's that simple, but I always say that eating healthy is not easy, but it is simple, right? So all of these diets are evidence-based, and they all have this in common. They're composed in large part, 90 to 95% of plants. So that brings us to this definition of a plant-forward dietary pattern. So you heard me talk just briefly about this morning, But the reason I'm so passionate about this is that this is an umbrella term that is really much more inclusive than focusing on any one of these diets in particular. And this is, the nutrition community is moving in this direction. This may be a new term for a lot of you, but this is the future, talking about plant-forward diets. So this is a style of cooking and eating that emphasizes plant-based foods, but it doesn't necessarily eliminate all animal-based foods. So it says, listen, we know that to eat is to live, and we enjoy what we eat and the rituals surrounding it. But at the same time, it says, if you want to really focus on a health-promoting diet, it needs to be full of a lot of plants. And we heard earlier, perhaps unprocessed or minimally processed plants. But we still are going to make room for fun stuff, meat, dairy, celebrations, and time with our family. So what I like about this is that we don't have to tell all of our patients, you need to eat like this. It makes room for diets that look like this, that look like this, that look like this. These diets that are composed of the same things, just different types of plants, and are more in line with how people's families and cultures and traditions have been eating for a long time. So I want to leave you with just one final thought, which is that I think there's this big misconception about our biggest obstacles in nutrition. I think everyone thinks that we're sitting around saying to ourselves, what is the healthiest diet? And that we're devoting all of our research efforts, our time, our money, and our nation's biggest and most powerful intellectuals to answering this question, what is the healthiest diet? But the truth is we know 90 to 95% of what we need to know about what makes a healthy diet. Of course, there's more research to be done, but the much more pressing question for our generation is how can we best help people achieve and maintain a healthy diet? How can we address barriers of transportation, access, time poverty, financial poverty, nutrition, education perhaps is lacking, culinary skills? These are the questions that we need to answer if we want to help our folks, our patients and us improve our diets, not what is the healthiest diet. So even though we've spent most of the time today discussing that former question, my goal is that we've been able to reframe our thinking and really move past that to focus on a plant-forward diet and to think further about how we can make it happen now in the future. So this is a sneak peek into my objectives, which is I just wanted us to compare some of these health-promoting diets that are evidence-based, and then to kind of combine these into an umbrella term which we further defined as a plant-forward dietary pattern. So with that, I want to acknowledge all the dietitians that I get to work with at Yale. Dietitians are the experts in nutrition, not physicians guising as them like me. And so we really should be referring our patients to them and relying on them for the most up-to-date and accurate information. So I appreciate their help.
All right, again, a lot of really effective techniques that I saw there. One is this think, pair, share technique, which is pretty self-explanatory, but I think the great thing about it is that it allows us to bring the intimacy of a small group session to a large group session like this. I think we all would have liked to have been in a small group session with Nate and learn this material and make it even more effective, but we can reach that many more people if we can do a hybrid of both large group and small group like this. Relatedly is that having the courage to venture out into the audience is something that I've often had a hard time doing too, but especially if you have a group that's not really engaging with you, if you get out into their space and kind of force them to pay attention, it can really help them get more engaged and move the conversation forward. And last, I think, was the use of the learning objectives and goals. It's something that we're often required to do for a CME, and so that people say, oh my God, I have to do this, and it seems like kind of a chore. But I think it really is helpful, if for no other reason than to help focus the presenter and think about what am I really talking about today, and what goal do I have here, and what do I really want to get across. So let's have another round of applause for Dr. Wood. So we have about 3 or 4 minutes for questions if the presenters want to come back up, and we can take questions from the audience, and I'm sure they'd be willing to stay behind later on too if we over time. So I think these microphones in the audience are on if you want to step up to the microphone. Questions either about the content or about how they put together their presentations or something else.
Great presentations. I just had a question in general about how do you feel like is the best way to get these teachings to clinicians? Is it like mandatory trainings, CMEs? It's just so much to learn all the time, so many exciting things all the time. So how do you impart knowledge in a way that will stick? Sorry, that's a big question. But...
She says, you go, you're the Mendon Fellow. that's a great question. I mean, I think we should start at the youngest age possible. So, you know, in my area of expertise, which is nutrition and culinary skills, like I think we need to bring back home ec, and there needs to be more nutrition in K through 12, right? So start young, continue at undergrad. It needs to be in med school, graduate medical education, CME, right? So start young and then keep going from there. But I think the dose will be different. So I think it's, you know, less about how to do it and more so like what's the dose that's needed. And so you have more time perhaps to do a larger dose in medical school, like a do no harm foundation. And then for graduate medical education, you can do specific skills that are particular to their specialty. And then for CME, it needs to be quick, high yield bursts and probably delivered largely virtually so that more people can participate.
Yeah.
I think like the other thing to add too, like I think like, you know, it's like very real, like acknowledging like the demands that there are in time and just that like the body of like medical knowledge and like what I think also what we consider medical knowledge is expanding all the time. I'm a pretty big proponent of like we have so much more technology available as well too, but like being able to like utilize these and not just thinking about it in sort of like the classroom setting necessarily, but like utilizing a lot of sort of like asynchronous digital platforms as well too, I think is going to be key in the future. And I think it's also, you know, maybe also like quality too, like acknowledging the fact that quantity is all, like quantity of time can be very limited.
We're just about out of time, so I'm sure these guys will be happy to stay behind to answer other questions. Let's have one more round of applause for our